What's y'all's mission statement? What's the purpose? What is Reed trying to do?
So Reed always talks about impacting and developing people. I will say the one thing that Reed and Jacqueline have always focused on is not the numbers. A lot of people, business is driven by numbers, and the number is everything. Quotas, this, that, and the other. And Reed just has a firm belief in doing things the right way. And if we do things the right way, the numbers will follow. And we talk about our wild. Wild is what you see on all of our license plates all over the town. Wild are basically our core beliefs: will to win, intentional adaptability. Each letter has its own meaning. We go into our people and tell everybody we are faith and family-based business. We're a local business, and we're very pointed about all of our beliefs.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Best of Johnston County Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we're going to have Ed Aldridge. And in this episode, we're going to do two with Ed. But in this episode, we're going to talk about where he's from, how he got to Johnston County, his work with RiverWILD and that development company with Reed Smith. And we're also going to talk about his work on the Johnston County Economic Development Committee. And if you follow this podcast, we had Chris Johnson on a few episodes ago. So we're talking a little bit about that. And it should be really exciting. And then we'll do another episode that'll be out in a few weeks where we'll talk about some other things with Ed, including his work with the Airport Authority and the charity of One Compassion. If this is your first time listening, following, or seeing the Best of Johnston County podcast, if you do us a favor of liking, following, or subscribing to this podcast wherever you're seeing it, whether it be Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, or any of our social media campaigns that we have out there, so that you'll be aware of future episodes of the Best of Johnston County Podcast. The Best of Johnston County Podcast comes out on every Monday, so check back every week for new episodes that come out every Monday, and go back and listen to some of our previous episodes. And also, if you'd be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review down at the bottom, it'll help with our visibility so other people will be able to find the Best of Johnston County Podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Ed.
Thank you.
All right, so start with what's your name and where are you from? What do you do?
So I'm Ed Aldridge. I was originally born in Edgecombe County, Tarboro. Came to Raleigh in 1987 to go to school at North Carolina State.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Went to state, graduated from state, bounced around a couple of odds and end jobs in Raleigh for a couple of years. Then after that, I had about a 25-year tenure at Gregory Pool Company, the cat dealer located in Raleigh, North Carolina. Moved down to the Clayton area about 2003. And I've been a Clayton resident ever since. Went to work about 4 years ago for RiverWILD, located on Main Street in Clayton, owned and founded by Reed and Jacqueline Smith. The two founders, very young founders, they were looking to add some age to the building. When they hired me, I looked like everyone's grandfather in the building. Over there was a lot of young people in the building. So it was a great opportunity for me and my family to work 10 minutes away from home, and again, give back to my community and to also take better care of my family also. That's kind of the...
Yeah, hey, that's great. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about RiverWILD. Reed is Fred Smith's son, and he's an extremely nice young man. I know there's a lot of people that have varying opinions about RiverWILD because of the development it's doing. Opinions about Fred Smith, good or bad. I think he's done a great job as a county commissioner. And I think that the neighborhoods that he's done and that y'all have done are excellent. And they've got businesses in them. They have sidewalks and walking trails and curbs and gutterings, and they're kept up and all of that stuff. So talk a little bit about RiverWILD specifically, what it's doing, how it might be different from the Fred Smith companies, because I think some people get them mixed up.
Yeah, we're a totally separate entity. Reed and Jacqueline about 10 years ago began RiverWILD. They stepped out on their own and began to grow the company very organically. At one point, Reed was building the houses, and Zach Stewart was actually out building them, and Jacqueline was selling them. And they began to grow that company very organically and slowly. And it has blossomed into a very multifaceted business now where we've got a development entity, we've got a site work entity, we've got home building, general construction, custom homes, real estate, property management, very diverse. We are very heavily Johnston County centric, and we live in the communities that we're in. So again, to your point, when you're a developer, you're never going to make everybody happy. But the horse is out of the barn. People know Johnston County is growing. And as it grows, we like to think that at least we add some local flavor to that growth. And we also employ a lot of local people and different companies, subcontractors, vendors, and stuff like that. Reed and Jacqueline prioritize doing business local with good local partners, not necessarily the cheapest, but best partners are very high priority of our company.
Right. No, I understand that. I know there's a lot of projects going on. You and I talked right before we started recording this. I just saw y'all sign go up here at the Publix at 50 and 42. What are y'all doing with that? For those of you that first time listen, we were getting a Publix. It'll be open maybe January, February of 25. It's going to be at 50 and 42 right in front of the Lowe's Foods across from the Wells Fargo Bank. And it's going to have some outbuildings. So what are you doing there?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We have a partner out of Florida that we landed a public site work contract with. It is also going to have some out parcel buildings. We're busy currently putting in the utilities and all the site work right over here at 42 and 50. And the partner is also looking at doing multiple other publics in and around the whole Johnston County and Halo counties of Wake County areas. We're very fortunate. Like I said, our site work division is doing a lot of third-party work at this point, and Publix is one of our larger, shining, nice, up on the hill projects right now.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. And the rumor mill around that Publix is there could be a Starbucks, a Jersey Mike's, a bank. I mean, these are just some of the things that we're hearing could be part of that project. And we've long needed a Starbucks at 40, 42. And I guess that's technically 50 and 42, but all that's Cleveland to me. So that'll be exciting for us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the places are trying to get out in front of the eventual widening of Highway 42 from 50 all the way through to 70. There's been a lot of conversation in social media and different places lately. I think the DOT basically has it on their radar right now for 2029. But I think a lot of people are trying to get out in front of that. They're hoping that the construction at 4042 will abate within the next year or two. Maybe the traffic will settle in just a little bit, and then they will do that next phase. And I think you will see more development along that corridor, people trying to get in front of that.
Well, and I went to, and I think you were there at a public hearing they did on that maybe 2 years ago at the Clayton Center.
Yes, sir.
I think you and I were there. They had all the maps up, and we were going around looking at that because you and I were on the Economic Development Board together at the time, and we were there just trying to figure out what they were going to do. So the drawing is there, right? Probably on the DOT website as to what that would look like, and that would come, for those listening in the 4042 area, with a median that would run all the way down past Cleveland Draft House. And we'd also get rid of a couple of these stoplights here at 4042 to try to make a little bit more. I think maybe the stoplight at Cookout goes away under the drawing, if I remember correctly. And you'd have to go to Cookout a different way. But anyway, so I think that's going to happen. And I think it'll be nice. And the biggest thing with that widening is we'll get a bigger bridge. You know, right now, if you drive down 42 towards Clayton, before you get to Cornwallis, that bridge at the bottom of the hill going over, I think that's Swift Creek, is very limited. It's outdated. It's not wide enough. I was hoping they would make Walmart add a lane to that bridge 15 years ago. It was probably a big get to ask a private developer to add a lane to a bridge. A lane on a bridge could be $1 million. But so those are some of the things that are coming here. It looks like the project that they're working on now with the diverging diamond, that could be done by the end of the year, I guess. I mean, they're getting close on that, it looks like.
There's several pinch points, I think, between 50 and Clayton. I think, like you're saying, the bridge is one. I think Cornwallis Road is another pinch point. Amelia Church, what they end up doing with the new Interstate 42 and the renaming of Highway 42 to Highway 36, been involved in some conversations about that. All of that's getting ready to change as well right now. We're trying to get businesses updated with all of their address changes.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the neighborhoods that RiverWILD is doing currently that are under construction.
So we have a mixture of neighborhoods, the majority of which are in Johnston County, and we try to focus on a diverse type neighborhoods. We try to focus on diversity as far as our product line, whether it is multifamily, townhomes, single family, and we try to do entry point single family on up to we have a higher end type of homes where we do customs, and those may go on up into the millions. But I think as you go into each individual area, whether it's Ashcroft over in Clayton, the further expansion of RiverWOOD in Clayton, East River down in Smithfield, Eller Farms, we've got multiple neighborhoods throughout the county at different price points. Smaller lots when people need an entry-level home, up to custom homes that may go as high as $2 to $3 million.
So does RiverWILD, as we talk about RiverWOOD, that was done by Fred Smith, Reed's father, when Reed was a child. Are y'all managing that? Or is the golf course now part of RiverWILD, or is still its own separate entity and y'all don't really get into all that?
No, they're two separate businesses. Fred's got his stuff and he does his thing, and Reed does his, totally separate. We're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum there.
Okay.
We're totally separate business entities.
Because I know Fred Smith himself has a bunch of cattle, and they're going to open a store in downtown near y'all's office to sell meat.
So Fred,
is that right?
Fred does Sim Angus is what Fred specializes in, and Reed does Wagyu. Reed is one of the larger producers of Wagyu in North America, and our Wagyu cows are actually located in Turkey, North Carolina, right off of exit 364 off of 40. But you can purchase our Wilder's Wagyu at our office at 114 West Main, or we do a ton of online sales currently at wilders.com.
Okay, are y'all going to open a storefront to sell Wagyu? Because I thought I heard that.
We haven't made any type of announcement yet.
Okay.
Working with Reed, I've learned one thing is for certain, that nothing is for certain. The best idea Reed's ever heard was the last one he just heard. So he is constantly formulating and adjusting and fine-tuning his ideas and his thinking. I don't think I've ever met a young man that educates himself as much as Reed does, and I don't think anything with him is ever set in stone. He is always looking how to make the wheel better or how to formulate things. So at this point, nothing is firm about what we're going to do as far as a meat market yet.
Okay. I didn't know until you just said it that Wagyu was Reed, and I thought it was all one. I didn't know they had two different types of cattle all of that stuff. So that's like fighting words. You're going to get it mixed up. My Angus is better than your Angus and all that stuff. We just had a few episodes ago, if you listen to the podcast, we had Lee's Fresh Market on, and I know their slaughterhouse does some of the work for Fred and maybe even for Reed too, down at the slaughterhouse there in Benson. And they've got great products at Lee's Fresh Market down there in Benson. If you've not been there, definitely go there. Great food, great sausage biscuits on Saturday morning, all that good stuff. So what's y'all's mission statement? What's the purpose? What is Reed trying to do?
So Reed always talks about impacting and developing people. I will say the one thing that Reed and Jacqueline have always focused on is not the numbers. A lot of people, business is driven by numbers, and the number is everything. Quotas, this, that, and the other. And Reed just has a firm belief in doing things the right way. And if we do things the right way, the numbers will follow. And we talk about our wild. Wild is what you see on all of our license plates all over the town. Wild are basically our core beliefs: will to win, intentional adaptability. Each letter has its own meaning. We go into our people and tell everybody we are faith and family-based business, we're a local business, and we're very pointed about all of our beliefs. And I think that is the big difference in us is Reed doesn't really have a vision of how big or what the size is. He just wants to do it the right way. And where we end up, as long as we continue to hold true to our beliefs and our core values, then we're in the right place.
That sounds great to me. That's exactly what I've tried to do here at the Breeden Law Office. And we just try to do things the right way. And the rest of it seems to take care of itself.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
So let's transition a little bit. You are now the chairman of the Economic Development Board of the county. You and I served on that board together for a couple of years ago. We had Chris Johnson, who is y'all's executive director that the board employs, on this podcast a few episodes ago. Encourage people to go back and listen to that. So just tell me, what does the board do?
So Chris Johnson leads our group, and Chris is actively out pursuing whatever it takes to bring industry and business to Johnston County. And Chris is really adept at the numbers as far as each morning, as we get more and more residents in Johnston County, we want to attract more business here because we really and truly would like to have people like myself who not only want to live in Johnston County, but it would be great to have the jobs and opportunity here where they can also work in Johnston County. And as Chris has been out recruiting these businesses, he goes out and talks to people all the time, and we talk about Johnston County has such a low unemployment rate. Where am I going to find my employees? Considering where your office is currently, if you look out on 40 every morning between about 6:30 and about 7:30, you can see where the employees are because they're on 40 heading for Wake County. I believe Chris says maybe about 70% of our employees leave Johnston County to go to Wake County for jobs. Most of those people would love to be able to find good, solid employment, whether it is industry, pharmaceutical, ag, whatever, right here within the county, so they could drop their kid off at school and maybe just drive 10 minutes to a very good paying job. And that is our big focus in bringing those industries and businesses here that would contribute back to our county.
And so the board is a volunteer board of local citizens from all over the county. They are appointed by the county commissioners. And can you just tell us a little bit of how, I know that's structured. I was on the board, but I'm asking the question to you. How is the board structured?
So the board is structured with each individual municipality in the county, which I believe it is 11, has representation on the board. And then there are a couple of at-large members on the board as well. So whether it's Micro, Kinley, Benson, Clayton, Smithfield, everybody has even representation on that board. So we are very focused on the entire county, whether it's the larger municipality of Clayton or a smaller municipality of Micro. We want them to know that we are focused on bringing business to the county, not to specific towns in the county. Sometimes businesses may land there, but overall, our goal is to do what is good for the greater good of the entire county.
Right. And the board's real main job is to vet the projects that Chris Johnson brings that are looking at Johnston County and decide what incentives the board could recommend to the county commissioners to give to the business to relocate or locate or build in Johnston County. That's one of the main things. It's more than that, but that's one of the main goals of your board, right?
Yes. And Chris does a great job of utilizing the bait that is Johnston County. There are certain counties that have no other bait other than to offer incentives. That's it. That's all they're fishing with, because when you go to their county, they may not be as flush with employees or homes or restaurants or social or infrastructure as Johnston County. Chris is pretty blessed that he's got pretty good things here at his disposal beyond just the incentive package. And he does a really good job about packaging up all the different wonderful assets of Johnston County and putting those together. And then maybe at a certain point, we do have to figure out, in order to compete with the Joneses, shall we say, you always have to throw in and say, there's a certain type of incentive that we're required. And to receive these incentives, we have specific criteria in place that people have to meet in order to receive these. And there's a 5 or 6, but specifically, it has to be a competitive deal against a different county. I think it has to be above the county wage at a certain point. There's a certain number of employees, different things like that. But we also have got into incentives lately also about existing businesses, adding to existing businesses. And we're trying to find that right balance now of, yes, we want to recruit more into this area, but we also want to make sure we're rewarding and continuing to build up our businesses that have been here in the county for years also.
We've been on an unbelievable roll here the last few years of new development with the Novo expansion really was the kickoff of it. I mean, at the time that was announced at $2 billion. That was the expansion of Novo was the largest single private investment in the history of North Carolina. It has now been surpassed by some other ones, and that expansion is 90 something acres under roof. And it ended up being well more than $2 billion by the time they got done with it. And now it looks like Novo is going to expand again. There's talk of that as well. And then you have Griffles and its expansion. They've gone across the train tracks. You don't really see it from the road, but they're doing something back behind it, which is not viewable from 70, but that's going to be more jobs. And a lot of that is based on the Workforce Development Center that the county has there in the middle of the plants that are paid for by the biopharmaceutical plants and by Johnston Community College and the ability to be able to train the workforce.
Yeah, and we just kicked off and did a groundbreaking recently of an additional Workforce Development Center down in Four Oaks, North Carolina, that JCC will continue to help running and helping us create wonderful employees right here at home for our industries that are right next door. And we can't say enough good things about the county commissioners having the foresight to help fund that, along with our state and local legislators doing a tremendous job of contributing to that and allowing us, again, like I said, to keep these employees at home in this area and helping us bring good businesses and good jobs to this area.
Yeah, and the Workforce Development Center, the one in Clayton, is based on biopharmaceuticals, but the one in Four Oaks has a different focus.
Yeah, and
what's its focus?
I will say that its focus, most of them have been able to adjust on the fly, shall we say, as Four Oaks Industrial Park is beginning to really get some traction. Becton Dickinson has been down there for years, and now Chris has really been out working really hard to grow that Four Oaks Business Park. We are looking, as we grow that business park, to figure out exactly how we can mold and get that specific Workforce Development Center in Four Oaks aligned with new industries that are coming here. We want it to be almost customization.
Well, and that's what you have to do now, and I learned so much in the 2 years I was on the board with you as an at-large member, trying to put in my 2 cents for the Cleveland community while I was there. And it really is fascinating. And Johnston County has so many things going for it, for the community colleges to the 2 biggest interstates in America intersecting here, to the availability of land. We still have land available. I know we're getting a lot of houses, but there are still large tracts of land that are available. Y'all have done some pre-site development. And I mean, we could go for hours about the things. I just remember the projects we worked on when I was on there. The Amazon Distribution Center is now open. You and I worked on getting the building there for adventure development across from the food hall, and which became Be Good Foods, leased that building. I know they haven't moved into it, but I think they've leased it to somebody else. And now they're going to build another 100,000 square foot building, I think, next to it. And there's a railroad spur that's going to be there, which is going to really take off because you'll be able to drive the train cars right up, load the product, and that train goes all the way to Florida. So people just don't understand just how many advantages are built right here in Johnston County. And so that growth and development is going to continue. How we manage it is up to us, but we can't stop it. Like you said, the cat's out of the bag. This is a great place to live. I love living here. You love living here. I'm not planning to go anywhere. You're not planning to go anywhere, and people are going to keep coming.
Yeah, trying to figure that balance out is difficult. There are residents who've been here for 50 or 70 years, and they want to see it continue rural. And again, like we said, that ship has probably sailed. This county, in an outlying area right outside of a metropolitan area like Raleigh, you're going to grow like wildfire. And we've got to figure out that right balance. We've got to continue working on our infrastructure system. I think our county commissioners have done a good job and are moving in the right direction on figuring out kind of regionalization of some water and sewer issues for our area. And we are going to have to regionalize, not just from a municipality in Johnston County. We're going to have to really sit down with our neighbors in Harnett County and places like that to figure out how to truly regionalize this area for everyone from a water and sewer perspective, in my opinion.
Right. So if the listeners would like to reach out to you about your work with the Economic Development Commission or what you're doing with RiverWILD, how could they do that?
Yeah, just feel free, reach out to me. You can always email me. It's pretty simple. ed@staywild.com. It's pretty simple email. Always glad to talk with people. Always glad to sit down and have civil discourse with people. You know, there are points where you just agree to disagree with people, but love to have good conversations with folks to figure out what's the best for our entire county.
And I guess the last question for this episode is, what do you love most about Johnston County?
I still like, you know, whereas a lot of people who have been here for a long time say it's lost its small town feel, but I still feel for the most part that Johnston County still has, for the most part, it's got a rural feel to it. Yes, coming into Clayton sometimes in afternoon traffic is bad and you feel like you're in a big city, but you know, I can still go and have breakfast at Jones's on Main Street in Clayton or down to Pine Level to a restaurant and go sit down and eat and still feel like you're in that small town feel where folks know your name. And it just, I still like the whole feel of Johnston County. You know, Chris always talks out from farm to pharma, how we still have it all. And in Johnston County, we still do have the farm and ag aspect all the way to pharmaceuticals. So I still think we cover a huge spectrum here in this county.
I don't disagree. I think you're right. So anyway, we'd like to thank Ed Aldridge for coming on to this episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast. As we mentioned earlier, please feel free to like, subscribe, or follow this podcast wherever you're seeing it so you'll be made aware of future episodes of the Best of Johnston County podcast. Till next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.